The acrid smoke of burning settlements hung heavy in the air as Captain Marcus Reed surveyed the devastation through his tactical visor. The Kytherian colony on Proxima 7 had been hit too hard for what should have been a routine evacuation. His boots crunched over crystalline debris that had once been homes. The bioluminescent structures of the peaceful amphibian species now reduced to glowing fragments scattered across the muddy ground. "Sir," came the voice of Corporal Hayes through his comm unit, "we've got survivors in Sector 7. Looks like civilians who missed the main evacuation. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." Marcus adjusted his grip on his pulse rifle, the weapons familiar. Weight of comfort in the chaos. The 42nd Colonial Marines had been deployed to extract remaining Kytherian civilians before the Vorthok invasion fleet arrived. But intelligence had underestimated how quickly the enemy would advance. Now, they were racing against time, with hostile ships already darkening the system's outer edge. "How many?" Marcus asked, picking his way through the wreckage toward the designated coordinates. "Unclear, sir. The biosignatures are ... unusual. Might be injured." Marcus frowned. Kytherians were notoriously hardy, their amphibian physiology allowing them to survive in conditions that would kill most species. If they were showing as unusual on the scanners, something was seriously wrong. The Sector 7 ruins had once been a family district, the elegant spiral towers now collapsed into twisted metal and broken biocrystal. Marcus could see where the Vorthok bombardment had struck their plasma weapons left. Distinctive scorch patterns that ate through even the strongest materials. The sight made his jaw clench. The Vorthok didn't just conquer worlds, they systematically eliminated anything that couldn't serve their war machine. "Over here, Captain?" Hayes called from behind a partially collapsed wall. Marcus rounded the debris and froze. Huddled in a small cave formed by fallen structure beams were two figures, but they didn't look like any Kytherians he'd encountered before. One was clearly a child, maybe 8 or 9 in human years, with the characteristic blue-green skin and large, dark eyes of the species. But the other, the other was tiny, almost infant-like, with skin that seemed to shimmer between colors and breathing apparatus that looked mechanical rather than biological. She lay motionless in the child's arms, connected to what appeared to be a jury-rigged life support system cobbled together from salvaged equipment. "Please," the child whispered in accented standard, looking up at Marcus with eyes that held far. Too much pain for someone so young. "Please, you have to help her. She's all we have left." Marcus knelt down, his combat suit's systems automatically scanning the two survivors. The readings made his blood run cold. The child showed signs of severe malnutrition and exhaustion. But more concerning was the other figure. His scanner was having trouble identifying her species at all. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "What's your name, kid?" Marcus asked gently. His voice softened, despite the urgency of their situation. "Kale," the boy replied, his webbed fingers protectively stroking the smaller figure's head. "This is Zara. She's my sister. Kind of. Kale's large, eyes filled with tears that seemed to glow with their own inner light. "She's not Kytherian. She's not anything, really. The scientists called her a hybrid, an experiment that shouldn't have worked." His voice cracked. "But she's family. She's all the family I have left." Marcus felt his chest tighten. In 5 years of colonial service, he'd seen plenty of horrors. But something about this child's desperate protection of his sister struck him deeply. "Where are your parents, Kale? Dead?" The word came out flat, emotionless in the way that only deep trauma could create. "The Vorthok don't like hybrids. They don't like experiments. They came to our research station first, before the main colony. Mama told me to take Zara and run. She made me promise to keep her safe." The life support system attached to the small figures began beeping frantically. Marcus's scanner showed her vital signs fluctuating wildly, her hybrid physiology struggling to maintain stability without proper medical support. She needs help, Kale pleaded, trying to adjust the makeshift equipment with hands too young to understand its complexity. The machine is breaking. I don't know how to fix it. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't let her die. Marcus is tactical. Mine was already calculating distances, enemy approach vectors, and evacuation windows. It had maybe 20 minutes before the Vorthok advanced scouts reached this sector. The smart military decision was to grab the Kytherian child and leave the hybrid her unknown. Physiology made her too much of a risk, and her life support system would slow down their escape. But as he looked at Kale's desperate face, at the way the boy clutched his sister with fierce protectiveness, Marcus heard his own voice say, "Hayes, call for immediate medical evacuation." "Priority 1, sir?" Hayes sounded confused. "The extraction window is getting narrow. If we delay, do it," Marcus commanded, carefully lifting Zara from Kale's arms. The hybrid child was lighter than he expected, her skin warm, but with an unusual texture that seemed to shift under his touch. Through his gloves, he could feel what might have been scales, or perhaps something else entirely, and prepped the medical bay on the transport. This one's going to need specialized care. Relief flooded Kale's features as he scrambled to follow Marcus's toward their extraction point. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you so much. I promised, Mama. I'd keep her safe. I promised." As they moved through the ruins, Zara stirred in Marcus's arms. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. Definitely not Kytherian, and unlike anything in the known species database. She looked up at him with an expression of curious intelligence that seemed far too advanced for her apparent age. "Hello," she said in a voice like wind chimes, speaking perfect standard despite her obvious youth. "Are you going to hurt us?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. "No, sweetheart. I'm going to keep you safe." "Good," Zara replied, with simple trust that made his heart ache. "Kale has been very worried. I told him someone would come, but he didn't believe me. I'm glad it was someone kind." Marcus glanced at Kale, who was staring at his sister in amazement. "She doesn't usually talk to strangers," the boy explained. "She says most people have dark thoughts around her." He tilted his head, studying Marcus with those large, intelligent eyes. "She trusts you. That's good. That's very good." The transport ship came into view, its hull scarred from emergency landings and combat operations. Marcus could see his team securing the perimeter, their weapons trained on the approaches where Vorthok forces might appear. Time was running out. "Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from the ship's ramp. "Enemy scouts just entered the system. We need to move now." As they boarded the transport, Marcus felt Zara's small hand clutch at his armor. Her touch seemed to send strange sensations through his nervous system, not unpleasant, but definitely not normal. Through his helmet's display, he could see her vitals stabilizing as they entered the ship's controlled environment. "The medical bay is prepped," Corporal Hayes reported, leading them to the ship's small but well-equipped medical section. "But, sir, I have to ask, what exactly are we dealing with? The scanners can't get a solid read on her biology." Marcus gently placed Zara on the medical table, where automated systems immediately began more detailed scans. The readings that appeared on the screens made everyone in the room fall silent. Her cellular structure showed components from at least 3 different species Kytherian, definitely, but also traces of something that might have been Alterian. And a third element that the computer couldn't identify at all. Fascinating, came a new voice from the doorway. Dr. Sarah Chen, the transport's chief medical officer, entered with the focused intensity that marked her as one of the best field medics in the colonial marines. "I've never seen cellular integration like this. Theoretically, these species shouldn't be genetically compatible." "But she's alive," Kale said defensively, positioning himself protectively beside the medical table. "She's not just an experiment. She's my sister." Dr. Chen's expression softened as she looked at the young Kytherian. "Of course she is, and we're going to take very good care of her." Whereat she turned to Marcus. "Captain, I need to know what's the plan here. This child needs specialized long-term care that goes beyond anything we can provide on a transport ship." Marcus felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. Standard protocol was clear. Alien civilians were to be processed through colonial administration and settled in appropriate refugee facilities. But Zara's hybrid nature complicated everything. She didn't fit into any existing category, and her unusual abilities, whatever they were, might make her a target for research or worse. "The Kytherian refugee ships?" he began, but Kale immediately shook his head. "They won't take her," the boy said with painful certainty. "They say she's not really Kytherian. The elders call her an abomination. They think her existence is ... wrong." Dr. Chen's face darkened. "That's ridiculous. She's a child." "A hybrid child with unknown capabilities," Marcus pointed out grimly, "which makes her valuable to the wrong people and dangerous to everyone else." As if to emphasize his point, Zara's hand touched the medical table's surface, and suddenly every screen in the medical bay flickered. For just a moment, the displays showed not medical readouts but something else: star charts. Maybe, or navigation data from systems none of them recognized. "Did she just ... double quotes," Hayes began. "Interface with our systems," Dr. Chen finished, staring at the screens in amazement. "Without any external connections? That shouldn't be possible." Zara looked up at them with those galaxy-filled eyes, completely unaware of the significance of what she'd done. "I'm sorry," she said in her wind chime voice. "Sometimes I can hear machines thinking. Try not to listen, but they're very loud." Marcus felt something fundamental shift in his understanding of the situation. This wasn't just about refugee placement or medical care. Zara represented something entirely new, a being whose very existence challenged the boundaries between species, between organic and artificial intelligence, between what was known and what was possible. "Captain," Rodriguez's voice crackled. "Through the comm system, we're clear of the system. But I'm getting priority messages from Colonial Command. They want a full report on all evacuees." Marcus looked at Kale, who was holding Zara's hand with desperate protectiveness. Then at Dr. Chen, whose medical curiosity was warring with protective instincts. And finally, at his own team, who were all staring at the hybrid child with mixtures of wonder and concern. The right thing to do was report everything to Colonial Command. Let the bureaucrats and scientists figure out what to do with a hybrid child whose abilities defied explanation. That was protocol. That was safe. "But safe for whom, sir?" Hayes prompted. "Your orders." Marcus made a decision that would change everything. "Tell Command we recovered 2 Kytherian civilians. Standard processing protocols apply. Look directly at each of his team members. Is that understood?" There was a moment of silence as the implications sank in. They were choosing to protect these children rather than follow strict protocol. In the Colonial Marines, that kind of decision could end careers or worse. "Understood, sir," Dr. Chen said firmly. 2 Kytherian civilians. Standard protocols." "Copy that," Captain Hayes added, and Rodriguez's voice came through the comm with professional neutrality. "Acknowledged." 2 Kytherian civilians reported. Kale looked up at Marcus with an expression of gratitude so profound it was almost painful to witness. "Thank you," he whispered. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay anything," Marcus replied. But even as he said it, he knew that wasn't entirely true. He'd just committed himself and his team to protecting these children. He had no idea what that was going to cost them. Zara's voice interrupted his thoughts, soft but clear. "Captain Reed, you have kind thoughts, but you're worried about the future. You don't need to be. Things will work out the way they're supposed to." Marcus stared at her. He hadn't told her his name. There was something in her tone that suggested she knew far more about their situation than any child should. "How?" "Did you?" he began, but Zara had already closed her eyes, her breathing settling into the steady rhythm of sleep. The medical monitors showed her vitals stabilizing, her hybrid physiology apparently adapting to the ship's environment with remarkable speed. "She does that sometimes," Kale explained quietly. "Knows things she shouldn't know. Mama said it was. Part of being a hybrid. She can sense possibilities, I think. Different futures." Dr. Chen exchanged a meaningful look with Marcus. A hybrid child with technological interface abilities and possible precognitive talents. If word of this got out to the wrong people, ... Well, we need a long-term plan, Marcus said finally. Somewhere safe where she can grow up without becoming a test subject or a target. I know a place, Dr. Chen said slowly. My sister runs a civilian settlement on Haven's Rest. Small colony, mostly agricultural. They're good people who mind their own business. And ... she hesitated. My sister's been trying to have children for years. She and her husband would welcome a family. Kale looked between them with hope and fear warring in his expression. You mean ... They might adopt us, both of us? Felt something warm unfurl in his chest at the boy's desperate hope. That depends, Kale? Would you want that? A new family? As long as we stay together? Kale said immediately. I promised Mama I'd take care of Zara. I won't break that promise. We wouldn't ask you to, Dr. Chen assured him. But you'd both need new identities, new backgrounds. The hybrid nature. That would have to remain secret. As if sensing the conversation even in sleep, Zara stirred slightly, and once again the medical bay's screens flickered. This time, they displayed what looked like identity documents, perfectly crafted records showing to Kytherian siblings. Orphaned in the Proxima 7 evacuation, with medical histories that explained any unusual readings as the result of rare, but documented genetic variations. She's helping, Kale said in wonder. She's making it easier for you to protect us. Marcus stared at the screens, at the flawless documentation that would allow these children to disappear into the vast network of war refugees and start new lives. Zara's abilities weren't just remarkable, they were evolving, adapting to their circumstances with an intelligence that bordered on the miraculous. The transport ship hummed steadily through hyperspace, carrying them toward a future none of them could have imagined when they'd started this mission. In the medical bay, 2 children slept peacefully, trusting in the kindness of strangers who had chosen compassion over protocol. And in the command chair, Captain Marcus Reed found himself wondering if maybe, just maybe, he'd been meant to find them. After all, as Zara had said, things had a way of working out the way they were supposed to. The first part of their journey was ending. But Marcus had the distinct feeling that their real adventure was just beginning. The agricultural colony of Haven's Rest spread across the valley like a patchwork quilt of green and gold. Its modest settlements connected by winding paths that followed the natural contours of the land. Marcus stood at the observation deck of the civilian transport they'd transferred to, watching the peaceful world grow larger through the viewport. 3 days had passed since they'd left the military vessel, 3 days of careful planning and identity preparation. It's beautiful, Kale whispered, pressing his face against the transparent aluminum. Beside him, Zara sat quietly in her portable medical chair, her galaxy eyes reflecting the planet's surface with an expression of deep concentration.
Ow!
The soil is rich, she said suddenly, her wind chime voice carrying that strange certainty it sometimes held. Good for growing things. The people here are ... patient. They understand that some things take time to flourish. Dr. Chen, who had insisted on accompanying them personally, smiled at the hybrid child's observation. Over the past few days, Zara's remarkable insights had become both comforting and slightly unnerving. She seemed to understand things about their destination that none of them had told her. My sister Elena will meet us at the landing pad, Dr. Chen explained, checking her personal communicator. I've told her you're war orphans who need a safe place to heal. She doesn't know about ... Your special circumstances, Zara. We thought it best to let her get to know you first. Marcus nodded approvingly. They'd spent considerable time crafting the children's cover story. According to their new documentation, Kale and Zara were siblings who had lost their parents in the Proxima 7 evacuation. Zara's unusual readings were explained as the result of a rare genetic condition that required ongoing medical monitoring but wasn't dangerous or contagious. The transport settled onto the landing pad with barely a whisper of sound, its civilian grade. Engines designed for quiet operation rather than combat maneuvers. Through the viewport, Marcus could see a small welcoming committee waiting for them. A human woman with Dr. Chen's distinctive features but a softer expression, accompanied by a tall man with gentle eyes and calloused hands that spoke of honest work. That's Elena and her husband James, Dr. Chen said, gathering their few belongings. They've been hoping to expand their family for years, but ... she trailed off, the universal sadness of unfulfilled dreams shadowing her features. They have Love to give, Zara said simply, her small hand finding Kale's larger one. That's what matters. Love makes families, not genetics. The wisdom in her words made Marcus's chest tighten. How had this hybrid child, barely old enough for school by human standards, developed such profound understanding of emotional truths? As they disembarked, Lena Chen Morrison rushed forward with the enthusiasm of someone who had been eagerly anticipating their arrival. She knelt down to Kale's eye level, her voice warm and welcoming. "You must be Kale," she said, extending her hand in the formal Kytherian greeting Dr. Chen had taught her. "I'm Alina. Sarah has told me so much about you and your sister." Kale hesitated for just a moment before returning the greeting, his natural caution warring with desperate hope. "Thank you for letting us come here," he said formally. "We know we're strangers." "Nonsense," James interjected, his voice carrying the easy confidence of someone comfortable with his place in the world. "Sarah's family is our family, and that makes you family too." He gestured toward Zara, who was studying him with those unsettling galaxy eyes. "And you must be Zara. We've prepared a special room for you with all the medical equipment Sarah requested." Zara tilted her head, considering him with that preternatural seriousness that made adults uncomfortable. "You have kind hands," she said finally. "You build things that last. That's good." "Kale and I, we need things that last." Lena and James exchanged a quick look, clearly taken aback by the child's unusual directness. Marcus stepped forward smoothly, his military training helping him navigate the awkward moment. "Zara sometimes says things that sound older than her years," he explained. "Her medical condition affects her neurological development in interesting ways. She's remarkably perceptive." It was true enough, if not the complete truth. Dr. Chen had helped him craft explanations that would account for Zara's unusual behavior without revealing her hybrid nature or her technological abilities. "Well," Alina said, recovering her composure, "with admirable speed, perceptive is wonderful. You could use someone who notices the important things around here." She gestured toward a hover transport that looked like it had been converted from farm equipment. "Why don't we head home? I've got dinner waiting, and I imagine you're all tired from traveling." The journey to the Morrison homestead took them through rolling farmland where alien crops grew in neat rows alongside familiar earth vegetables. The integration was so seamless that Marcus found himself impressed by the colony's agricultural philosophy. Instead of imposing Earth-normal farming on an alien world, they had clearly worked to understand and incorporate the local ecosystem. "The Kytherian agricultural techniques adapted beautifully to our soil," Alina explained, noticing his interest. "We've got families from 6 different species working together here. Everyone brings something valuable to the community." "Unusual," Dr. Chen commented. "Most agricultural colonies stick to single-species methodologies." James laughed, the sound rich with genuine humor. "We learned early on that stubbornness doesn't grow good crops. When the Altarian families showed us how to use their soil conditioning methods with Kytherian water management and human pest control, our yields tripled. Now we export to 12 systems." Zara spoke up from where she sat between the 2 boys in the transport's back seat. "The plants talk to each other here," she said matter-of-factly. "The different species of crops. I mean, they share nutrients and information. It makes them stronger." Alina turned to look at her with surprise. "That's actually exactly right. How did you know that?" "It took our agricultural specialists years to figure out the symbiotic relationships." "I can feel it," Zara replied simply. "Living things have patterns. They work together. The patterns get brighter and more complex. It's beautiful." Marcus felt that familiar chill of concern. Zara's abilities seemed to be expanding, or at least becoming more apparent.
Actable.
Her capacity to sense biological and technological systems was remarkable, but it also made her increasingly difficult to hide. The Morrison home appeared ahead of them, a sprawling structure that combined human architectural sensibilities with practical alien innovations. The walls seemed to breathe slightly, and Marcus realized they were made from a living building material, probably Altarian, bioconcrete that would adapt to environmental changes and self-repair minor damage. "Home sweet home," James announced. As they pulled up to the front entrance, "Lena, why don't you show our guests to their rooms while I finish up the evening feeding?" The Vorthkatal get cranky if dinner's late. As they entered the house, Marcus was struck by the sense of genuine warmth that permeated the space. This wasn't just a dwelling, it was clearly a home where love lived. Family photos covered the walls. Elena and James at their wedding, vacation, trips to various worlds, pictures with friends and extended family. But there were also empty spaces, gaps where other photos might have gone. "We've set up the first-floor guest suite for you," Elena explained, leading them down a hallway lined with windows that looked out onto the gardens. "Kale, your room is here, and Zara's is right next door with a connecting door so you can check on each other easily." Kale's room was simple but comfortable, with furniture scaled for his size and decorations that reflected both human and Kytherian aesthetic preferences. A small shrine in one corner held crystals and plants arranged in the traditional Kytherian pattern for honoring family memories. "For your parents?" Elena said softly, noticing Kale's attention to the shrine. "Sarah told me it was important to your culture." Kale's eyes filled with tears, the first real emotional breakdown Marcus had seen from the brave young Kytherian. "Thank you," he whispered. "I was afraid I'd forget the proper way to honor them." Elena knelt down and pulled him into a gentle hug, her maternal instincts overriding any cultural awkwardness. "We'll help you remember everything important," she promised. "And when you're ready, you can tell us about them. We'd like to hear about your family." Zara's room was next door, and Marcus had to admit that Dr. Chen's sister had done an impressive job. The space was equipped with all the medical monitoring equipment Zara might need, but it had been integrated so seamlessly into the room's design that it felt more like a comfortable bedroom than a medical facility.
Ow.
"The monitoring systems are connected to the main house computer," Elena explained, showing them the various interfaces. "If Zara needs anything during the night, we'll know immediately. And the systems are set to respect privacy. They only activate if there's a medical concern." Zara moved to the window and placed her small hand against the glass. Immediately, the house's environmental systems seemed to respond, adjusting temperature and humidity to optimal levels without any conscious input from the residents. "She does that sometimes," Kale said quickly, noticing Elena's surprised expression. "The doctors said her condition makes her sensitive to environmental factors. She unconsciously influences systems to make herself more comfortable." It was a plausible enough explanation, and Elena accepted it with the easy adaptability that seemed to characterize the people of Haven's Rest. "Well, that's handy," she said with a smile. "Our environmental controls are pretty smart, but they could probably learn a thing or two from you, Zara." As evening settled over the colony, they gathered in the Morrisons' dining room for a meal that showcased the agricultural success of Haven's Rest. The table groaned under dishes prepared from local ingredients, some recognizably Earth origin, others clearly alien, and still others that represented the successful hybridization of different species crops. "This is incredible," Dr. Chen said, sampling what appeared to be a fusion of Kytherian sea grapes with human-style pasta. "The flavor combinations are remarkable." "Elena's the artist," James said proudly. "I just grow the ingredients. She makes them sing." Throughout the meal, Marcus watched the family dynamics carefully. Elena and James were clearly people who had built their lives around caring for others. Their conversation was peppered with references to neighbors they'd helped, community projects they'd organized, and the various children and young people who had found refuge in their home over the years. "We've always had an open-door policy," Elena explained when Dr. Chen commented on their obvious generosity. "This world attracts people who need a fresh start. Sometimes those people need a little extra support while they find their footing." "Like us," Kale said quietly. "Like all of us," James corrected gently. "Elena and I came here because we needed a fresh start too." That's the beauty of Haven's Rest. Everyone gets to choose who they want to become. After dinner, as Dr. Chen and Marcus prepared to return to their transport for the night, they would be leaving in the morning. To maintain the fiction of a routine refugee placement, Era surprised everyone by speaking up. "Captain Reed," she said, her wind chime voice carrying that strange certainty again. "You don't need to worry about us anymore. This is where we're supposed to be. Elena and James will keep us safe, and Kale and I will help them become the parents they've always wanted to be." Marcus knelt down to her level, studying those galaxy eyes that seemed to hold far too much wisdom. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I can see the pattern," she replied simply. "Everyone's futures, they're all brighter when they're connected. Alina and James need children to love. Kel needs parents who understand that protecting means more than just keeping safe. And I need a family that won't be afraid of what I might become." Elena's hand flew to her heart, her eyes filling with tears. "What you might become." Zara turned to look at her new potential mother with those unsettling, beautiful eyes. "Something new," she said honestly. "Something that's never existed before. I don't know what that will mean yet, but I know it will be easier with people who love me." The honesty in her voice, the vulnerability beneath her unusual wisdom, seemed to crack something open in Elena's chest. She knelt down and gently took Zara's hands in her own. "We already love you," she said simply. "Both of you. And whatever you become, whatever either of you become, we'll figure it out together. That's what families do." James moved to stand behind his wife, his large hands settling protectively on her shoulders as he looked at both children. "Elena's right. We're not perfect, and we don't have all the answers, but we've got plenty of love and stubborn determination. Sometimes that's enough." As Marcus and Dr. Chen prepared to leave, Cale caught Marcus's arm with desperate urgency. "You'll come back to visit, won't you? Just to check on us?" "Try to keep me away," Marcus replied, meaning it more than he'd expected. 2. These children had worked their way into his heart in ways that went far beyond military duty or compassion for war orphans. Standing in the doorway, watching the family of 4 because that's what they already were, Marcus realized he felt a peace he hadn't experienced since the war began. Zara was right. This was where they were supposed to be. As their transport lifted off into the star-filled night, Dr. Chen spoke quietly from the co-pilot's seat. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Hiding what she really is. Marcus looked back at the warm lights of the Morrison homestead, where 2 traumatized children were learning to trust again, and 2 loving adults were finally getting the family they'd always dreamed of. "I think we did the only thing," he replied. "Sometimes the right choice and the safe choice aren't the same thing. These people will love them unconditionally. That's what those kids need more than anything else." Below them, Haven's Rest settled into peaceful sleep, unaware that it now harbored one of the most remarkable beings in the galaxy. But in the Morrison home, a hybrid child named Zara placed her hand against her new bedroom window and gently encouraged the house's biosystems to optimize themselves for a growing family. The second phase of their journey had begun, and it was filled with hope 6 months after their arrival on Haven's Rest. The Morrison homestead had transformed in ways both subtle and profound. The bioconcrete walls seemed more vibrant. The gardens flourished with unprecedented vigor. And the house's environmental systems operated with an efficiency that impressed even the colony's engineers. But the most significant change was in the family itself. Cale burst through the front door, school satchel bouncing against his hip, as he called out in excitement. "Alina, James. Wait until you hear what happened in agricultural studies today." Alina emerged from the kitchen, flour dusting her apron and a warm smile brightening her face. The past months had filled out some of the hollow places in her heart, and she moved with the confident purpose of a woman who had found her calling as a mother. "Let me guess," she said, catching Cale in a hug that he no longer flinched away. Your crop yield calculations were perfect again?" "Better than perfect," Cale said proudly. "Mrs. Henderson says, my hybrid growing techniques are going to revolutionize colonial agriculture. She wants me to present at the sector-wide Youth Science Symposium." From the living room came the soft sound of Zara's laughter, musical and bright. "I told you that you had a gift for making things grow together," she called out. "Even people." Elena's heart squeezed with the fierce love that had grown between them all. Zara's health had stabilized remarkably under their care, her hybrid physiology seeming to thrive in the nurturing environment of Haven's Rest. More importantly, both children had begun to heal from their trauma, learning to trust in the permanence of love and safety. James entered from the back garden, his clothes dirt-stained from the day's work, but his expression glowing with satisfaction. "I heard the commotion from the greenhouse. Good news?" "The best," Alina said, pulling him into their family huddle. Our son is going to be famous. The word son still sent a thrill through all of them. The adoption papers had been finalized. Just last month, making official what their hearts had known from the beginning. Cale Morrison and Zara Morrison were no longer war orphans. They were beloved children with a permanent place in the world. Speaking of the greenhouse, James said, his voice taking on a note of wonder, "You all need to see what Zara's been working on? I'm not sure I believe it myself." They made their way to the large biodome that served as James's experimental growing facility. Inside, the air shimmered with an almost mystical quality, and plants that should have been impossible grew side by side in perfect harmony. Kytherian, aquatic crops flourished next to desert-adapted Regelian succulents, while earth tomatoes climbed trellises made from living Altarian wood that fed nutrients directly to their roots. "This shouldn't work," James said, his farmer's practical mind still struggling to accept what his eyes showed him. "These species have completely different environmental needs, different soil chemistry requirements, they're talking to each other." Zara interrupted, emerging from behind a stand of impossibly tall corn stalks. Her galaxy eyes sparkled with excitement, and her small hands were stained with soil and plant juices. "I've been teaching them how to share what they need instead of competing for it." Lena knelt down to Zara's level, no longer surprised by her daughter's extraordinary insights, but still awed by them. "How do you teach plants to share, sweetheart?" Zara tilted her head, considering how to explain something that came as naturally to her as breathing. "Everything has patterns, living things, machines, even thoughts and feelings. When I touch the plants, I can feel their patterns and help them harmonize, like a symphony, where every instrument plays a different part but creates something beautiful together." "Show us," Cale asked, his scientific curiosity overriding his protective instincts. Over the months, he had gradually relaxed his fierce guardianship of Zara, as he came to trust their new family completely. Zara moved to a section where a struggling earth rose bush grew next to a thriving Kytherian moss tree. She placed one small hand on each plant, closing her eyes in concentration. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then gradually the air around them began to shimmer more brightly. The rose bush straightened, leaves growing greener and more vibrant. At the same time, the moss tree's bioluminescent patches pulsed with a gentler rhythm. Where their root systems met in the soil, Alina could swear she saw tiny threads of light connecting them. "The moss tree has minerals the rose needs," Zara explained, without opening her eyes, "and the rose produces compounds that help the moss tree process nutrients. I'm just helping them recognize that they can help each other instead of seeing each other as competition." When she stepped back, both plants continued to glow softly, their root systems now visibly intertwined in a relationship that any botanist would have declared impossible. "Zara," Alina said softly, "that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen." "It's what families do," Zara replied simply. "We help each other become better than we could be alone." That evening, as they gathered for dinner, the conversation naturally turned to the future. The science symposium that Cale would be attending was being held on the sector capital world, and several of the colony's brightest young people would be going to present their projects. "I want Zara to come with me," Cale announced suddenly. "Her work with plant harmonization is just as important as my agricultural research. More important, actually." Alina and James exchanged a careful look. They had known this moment would come eventually, the time when Zara's extraordinary abilities would attract attention from the wider galaxy. So far, they had managed to keep her gifts hidden within the small community of Haven's Rest, but a sector-wide scientific presentation would change everything. "Sweetheart," Alina said gently, "you know that Zara's condition makes travel difficult." "The medical monitoring requirements alone are manageable," Zara interrupted, her wind chime voice carrying unusual firmness. "I've been thinking about this for weeks. It's time." "Time for what?" James asked, though something in his expression suggested he already knew. "Time to stop hiding," Zara said simply. "I can't stay secret forever, and I don't want to. The galaxy is full of people who think different species can't truly work together. that hybrids like me are abominations or impossibilities. But look, what we've created here. She gestured toward the windows that showed their thriving farm. Look what happens when beings choose love over fear. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. Her daughter, because that's what Zara was, in every way that mattered, was ready to step into a world that might not be ready for her. There will be risks, James said carefully. People who want to study you, governments that might try to control you, scientists who see you as a phenomenon rather than a person. I know, Zara replied. But I also know that hiding hasn't made the problems go away. The war is still happening. Species are still afraid of each other. Maybe it's time to show them a different possibility. Cale reached across the table to take his sister's hand. If you're going to change the galaxy, I want to be there to help. Lena looked at her husband, reading in his expression the same mixture of pride and terror that she felt. They had always known that their children were destined for something greater than the quiet life of Haven's Rest. The question was whether they had given them a strong enough foundation to handle whatever came next. If we do this, Alina said slowly, we do it as a family. No one separates you children. No one studies you without your consent. And if things get dangerous, we come home immediately. Deal, Zara said with a grin that was pure mischievous child rather than profound hybrid being. Besides, I've already seen how it goes. The symposium will be wonderful. 3 weeks later, the Morrison family stood on the presentation platform of the Sigma Centauri Science Institute, facing an audience of the sector's most brilliant minds. Cale's presentation on interspecies agricultural collaboration had gone perfectly, earning enthusiastic applause and several offers of advanced study programs. Now it was Zara's turn. My name is Zara Morrison, she began, her young voice carrying clearly through the amphitheater's acoustics. And I want to tell you about harmony. She had insisted on keeping her presentation simple, focused on the practical applications of her abilities rather than their implications. On the stage behind her, holographic displays showed the impossible gardens of havens, rest species from across the galaxy thriving together in ways that challenged every established principle of xenobiology. Most people think that different. Species can't truly work together, Zara continued, her galaxy eyes scanning the audience with calm confidence, that our differences make us incompatible. But what if the differences are actually what makes cooperation possible? She moved to a small garden display they had brought from Haven's Rest, placing her hands on plants from 6 different worlds. As the audience watched in stunned silence, the organisms began to glow and intertwine, creating a living sculpture of impossible beauty. Every species has something unique to offer, Zara explained as the plants continued their luminous dance. The Kytherian moss trees process minerals that earth roses can't access. Rigelian succulents store water that Altarian vines need during dry periods. And they learn to share instead of compete. They all become stronger. Dr. Yethan, the Institute's most respected xenobiologist, stood up from the front row. Child, what you're showing us appears to violate several fundamental principles of evolutionary biology. How is this possible? Zara smiled at him with the patient expression she used when explaining something obvious to adults. Because evolution doesn't stop at individual survival. It's about finding the best ways for life to flourish. Sometimes, life flourishes best when it works together. She removed her hands from the plants, but they continued to glow, their newly formed connections maintaining the harmony she had facilitated. I can help them find these connections because I'm a connection myself. I'm human in Kytherian, and something else that doesn't have a name yet. I exist because my parents believed that love was stronger than genetic incompatibility. A murmur ran through the audience as the implications of her words sank in. Zara Morrison wasn't just demonstrating remarkable abilities, she was revealing herself as something that shouldn't exist according to conventional understanding. My family taught me that differences don't have to divide us, Zara continued, her voice growing stronger. They can be the foundation for something beautiful and new. That's what I want to share with the galaxy, not just how to make plants grow better, but how to make civilizations grow better. Lena felt James's hand find hers as they watched their daughter, their miracle.
Out.
Daughter offered herself and her gifts to a galaxy that desperately needed what she represented. Around the amphitheater, scientists and officials leaned forward, their expressions ranging from wonder to concern to barely concealed excitement in the months that followed. The Morrison family's life changed dramatically. Zara's revelation had sparked a revolution in interspecies cooperation research, but it had also attracted exactly the kind of attention they had feared. Government officials wanted to study her, military commanders saw potential weapons applications, and radical groups declared her an abomination that threatened the natural order, but it had also brought unexpected allies. Dr. Chen arrived with a team of researchers dedicated to protecting hybrid rights. Captain Reed, now promoted to admiral, established a military protection detail disguised as a cultural exchange program. Most importantly, families from across the galaxy began coming forward with their own hybrid children beings who had been hidden away in shame and fear, now finding hope in Zara's example. "Look," Zara said one evening, standing in their expanded greenhouse that now hosted research teams from a dozen species. Around them, scientists from across the galaxy worked together, learning to apply her harmonization techniques to everything, from agriculture to planetary turfo, kale. Now enrolled in an advanced xenobiology program, but still living at home. Followed her gaze to where a human researcher was collaborating with a Kytherian botanist and an Altarian ecological engineer. "They're learning," he said with satisfaction. "They're evolving," Zara corrected, "just like the plants, just like all of us." Lena wrapped her arms around both her children, marveling at how far they had all come from that desperate day when a young Kytherian boy had begged a human soldier to save his sister. "Are you happy, sweetheart, with how everything turned out?" Zara leaned into her mother's embrace, her galaxy eyes reflecting the bioluminescent glow of their impossible garden. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," she said with a certainty that had marked her from the beginning. "We all are." James joined their family huddle, his farmer's hands gentle on his children's shoulders. "You know what I think? I think the galaxy just got a lot more interesting. And a lot more hopeful," Elena added, watching as their hybrid daughter, their bridge between. Worlds continued to teach the universe that love truly was stronger than fear in the months and years that followed. Zara's influence spread far. Beyond Haven's Rest, her techniques revolutionized agriculture. Her philosophy inspired new approaches to interspecies diplomacy. And her very existence proved that the boundaries between species were far more fluid than anyone had imagined. But perhaps most importantly, she remained what she had always been, a beloved daughter in a family that had chosen love over protocol, hope over fear, and possibility over limitation. The Morrison family had saved 2 orphan children, only to discover that those children had saved them right back, and in the ever-expanding gardens of Haven's Rest. Impossible things continued to grow, nurtured by the simple truth that families like hybrid roses and bioluminescent trees flourish best when they're rooted in love. The end up next. You've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.